Well, good morning, everyone. I'm John Mann, Director of Education for Lakeside. And for today, we're continuing to explore the 49th and 50th states. And this session is titled Pacific Plates, a culinary journey from Alaska to Hawaii. And we're fortunate to welcome Stacy Maple, who is a professionally trained chef, culinary educator, founder of the Chef Stacy Maple Culinary Experiences, and received formal training from Le Cordon Bleu. And this morning, Stacy will bring together land, sea, culture, and the rich regional stories that connect these two remarkable states. This evening, I hope you can join us for the Dogs of War and Peace Gallery exhibit talk, which is led by the artist Jim Melick. It's at 7:30 p.m. in the Hoover lobby. But I would ask if you would please mute your cell phone ringers and help me in welcoming Stacy Maple.
Thank you so much for coming back. How many of you have, I had a pleasure of doing a demo for a class or a dinner in the past. I'm just curious, how many, by show of hands? Yay, thank you for coming back. Thank you, thank you. So that means the rest of you, I'm new to you, correct? Where are you? Raise your hand so I can see you. Hi, welcome. I'm Chef Stacy. Nice to meet you. Just a little bit about myself before we get going anyway. I am, as John said, a classically trained, a professionally trained chef. I trained at Le Cordon Bleu. I have worked in the industry for decades. We're not going to put a number on it. The older I get, I don't like numbers as much anymore. So we'll just say decades. I have worked everything from the dish pit in a restaurant, the front of the house from serving and hosting and those things, all the way up to an executive chef and owner even. Here with Lakeside, that's my professional past. With my personal past, I have a really intimate and storied, relationship with Lakeside as well. It goes back to my great-great-grandparents who owned property here. My grandparents owned property here. My parents owned property here on Sycamore. And when I had the opportunity, I convinced my husband to come here and raise our children, and we did. So we lived here for 20 years. Right outside the gate, our kids went to Sandusky St. Mary's, and they lived here and got patio ice cream and patio donuts and coffee and cream and Maryland's candies and 4th of July parades and all those things, and loved every bit of it. Professionally, I had the opportunity to manage originally the coffee and cream. When the Grinleys opened it, the second year I came in as their manager and managed it for 3 years. And then they decided they kind of wanted to do some other things. And so Mitch and Chris, I purchased it from them, and we had it for 3 years, my husband and I. And then eventually we turned it over to the Bissonnettes, who've had it and done a wonderful job with coffee and cream. So I'm so happy to be a little bit of the part of coffee and cream too. My story kind of overlaps with theirs. I also used to do cooking classes here at Lorenzo's at the culinary school, if you remember that, Patty and Larry School. That was a fun time as well. And then eventually I started doing cooking demonstrations here. I went to culinary school, we came back to the area, that's when we bought our house, and at the time, Marianne had just started the farmers markets, and I worked with her, and we started doing cooking demonstrations at the farmers markets, and that was 12 years ago this week. So it's really exciting to be back. This is my 12th consecutive year at Lakeside doing different cooking demonstrations. So from there, then eventually I became an employee of Lakeside, and I worked here as their wellness director and culinary arts director, and then eventually the VP of hospitality. That was during the COVID years. We don't like to talk about those too much. We gotta let that go, right? That was a difficult time. I think the last time I was on this stage, or in this stage actually, or this space, was during COVID, and I was doing a cooking demonstration because everything on our programming was live, it was virtual at that point, and we were trying to see what we could do, and we were being flexible and pivoting, and so that's where I started doing cooking demonstrations here, which I think is the first time I've been back since probably 2020 doing that. So I've done a lot of different things here at Lakeside, so I'm just happy to be back and to be a part of the 2026 and the 250th celebration here. John and I think we came up with a really unique way of celebrating that and talking about cuisines that really reflect the different cultures of the area. So today we are going to be talking primarily about our two Pacific states, Alaska and Hawaii, okay? And when we think about that, and you think about the Pacific plates, the Pacific states that is, two things come to mind, I would assume anyway. I'm going to see if I can advance this clicker here. There we go. They're drastically different when you first look at them, right? That's what we would assume. One, obviously, cold, barren, wilderness, harsh winters, difficult, freezing temperatures. We've got over here, we've got Hawaii. Hawaii. Yes, it looks beautiful. But obviously, both of them, interestingly enough, are really depending upon the land, the sea, and the different the native cultures of those two different regions. They have deep ties to those. Although we look at Hawaii and we think, man, I'd like to be there right now, maybe. If you think about to the native people of Hawaii, they had to be a hardy group of people, because they are completely in the middle of the Pacific Islands, or Pacific Ocean, by themselves. Similar to what the folks and the native folks of Alaska would have been enduring too. They were completely isolated as well, and trying also to make it through those harsh conditions of the different temperatures. From that, there's a lot of different things that then become to be very similar between the two. They have a really storied past with preservation and finding ways to make things last. Long before we could can, long before we could refrigerate, they were finding ways to preserve different kinds of food. In Hawaii, Alaska, or this side, Alaska often, they're going to be doing smoking. A cold smoke or a hot smoke is how they're going to be preserving different things. We're going to come back to that, put a pin in that for a moment. When we talk about Hawaii, we think about salt cured. Makes sense, right? There's a ton of salt around those oceans there in Hawaii, so there's a lot of salt curing that goes on. If you think about, obviously, they need some heat up in Alaska. They've already got these fires going, and so we're going to have this hot smoke that takes place in Alaska. Those are two main differences between the way that they preserve. We're going to be using and talking about both of those today in our different demo here, just to kind of give you an idea. Before I go too much further, though, I do want to talk about my little drink that I have up here, and I'm going to be sipping on during the demo. This is our fire and iced tea, and it's a hibiscus tea, so it's got that beautiful red color, which I kind of think looks like the volcano, a little bit like the fires of Hawaii. You think about that beautiful color of the hibiscus. And the hibiscus is obviously, or if you remember anyway, is the state flower of Hawaii too. So we've got this hibiscus tea. You can add a little bit if you wanted to something to kind of sweeten it up, but it's a nice little way to kind of celebrate Hawaii anyway. And of course, we've got glaciers in Alaska, so we're going to add in some crushed ice, and now we have this fire and iced tea. So today, this is kind of the drink, kind of my signature drink that we have up here. If you wanted to make it at home, it's super simple, and I do have recipes for everybody if you haven't grabbed one. Make it your own. If you want to sweeten it up, add a little bit of honey. Because we have pineapple juice today, I could add a little splash of pineapple in there if I want. I'd sweeten it that way as well, but this is just a super simple little way to kind of get through our demo anyway today. So again, this is the fire and iced tea. Okay, now we're going to talk about a very iconic dish. Has anybody had lomi lomi salmon in Hawaii? Maybe at a luau or something, right? Okay, it has become synonymous with those outside cultural parties that you think of when you think about Hawaii, those cultural traditions. Lots of fire, thinking about you need a cold side dish. This dish is typically served very, very cold, often even on ice, okay? The lomi lomi salmon, lomi actually means massage, okay? So interestingly enough, this particular salmon is actually cured with salt. The salt is massaged into the salmon. The salt draws the moisture out, but it leaves a really raw and silky texture behind. So it doesn't feel like it's been cooked. It kind of has that raw sensation still. That's how it's traditionally served in Hawaii. It's then served alongside with some other key ingredients. We're going to be like Maui onions, a sweet onion, and tomatoes. Those were kind of the three main things to start with the lomi lomi. Lomi lomi started, it was brought by, salmon was brought by fur traders to Hawaii, and shortly after that is when this lomi lomi salmon became very, very popular at these outdoor dining events and things. Lomi, again, as we said, means massage, right? So the first time they're massaging the salt into the salmon, there's your lomi. The second time, they're massaging all the ingredients together, tossing, massaging, using their hands again. There's your lomi, your second lomi. You got lomi lomi now, okay? So you got lomi lomi salmon. To make this kind of a fusion between our Alaska and our Hawaii different states, we're going to go ahead and use a very traditional and very iconic fish that is used in in Alaska, and that's going to be the Alaskan salmon, right? When you think about salmon, for those of you who are fishermen, do you find salmon in tropical waters? Anybody? No, right? I mean, it's a cold water fish. It needs those freshwater streams and cold water. So it's really strange to me, if you think about it, that a dish that requires salmon, which is not a Hawaiian fish or tropical fish, has become synonymous with Hawaii. It's one of their iconic dishes. Isn't that kind of strange? I think it's a fantastic example of fusion culture and fusion cuisine. You have these fur traders who came in. They brought with them the salmon, salt-cured salmon at that. They brought the tomatoes and they brought the onions, neither of which are native to Hawaii either. Those are not native agricultural products. So fur traders bring them in. They make them their own. They do with it what they know to do, which is lomi lomi. So they bring it in, they salt cure that salmon, they go ahead, they cut it up, they add in now these wonderful new tomatoes, these new flavors that they are not accustomed to. Often they add a little bit of lime juice, toss it all together, let it set, keep it super cold, and then they serve it outside. I'm going to come play with that a little bit more. I'm going to add a little bit of dill to it too and a couple other flavors to make it, I think, a little bit more palate pleasing for our meal today. But at the core, it's a super simple dish. Again, lomi lomi, massage, massage, turn, turn, and we're going to be using a smoked Atlantic salmon today rather than the salt-cured salmon that normally is used. Kind of bring both of those together, both of those plates on in one dish. Okay, now that I've talked all through that, I promise we're going to do some cooking. Okay, so we have now just so you know, no, I did not smoke the salmon, nor did I catch the salmon, but I did find a fantastic product that I'm so excited about, and it's actually a candied smoked salmon, okay? Which candied smoked salmon is so Alaskan. That is so one thing that they do that most other regions and most other states do not do. They don't do a candy smoked. And the difference is that they're taking a syrup and they're brining the salmon in a syrup first, then hot smoking it. Now, I know you can't smell this, but it smells fantastic. It's got that smoky smell. It kind of smells, well, it's just delicious. You're going to get a chance to take my word for it. You're going to get a chance to taste it here in a little bit. But when they brine this, they go ahead and cut it up into nugget-sized pieces first. They put it in a brine, then for at least 24 hours, sometimes longer, and then they would hot smoke it so that when it comes out, let me put a second glove on here. When it comes out, it's no longer that raw, silky texture that you would have of a traditional salmon used in lomi, which is more raw feeling in your mouth. This is going to be more of that flaky salmon that feels more like it's been cooked when you think about that. Okay. So this is what we're going to use. You can now find smoked salmon most places. A lot of times it's the real thin pieces that you find that you might put on a canapé or maybe on a bagel. But if you look now in the markets, this is just from Meijer's. I thought I may have to go to Trader Joe's or someplace else a little bit more high-end to find it, but Meijer's now has it, and they literally had the candy smoked. I was so excited. I was like, yes, that's so Alaskan. So it's Alaskan salmon, it's candy smoked even, which is so on point for what we're doing. So we have our smoked salmon that's right here. We're going to come back to that in just a moment. And then we have our Roma tomatoes. Now, it does say that you can seed and dice them, or seed them, but we're not going to. We're just going to go ahead and just dice them up. So I'm going to take the end pieces off. And I'm just going to make them all about the same size. Okay. And then, in addition to the tomatoes, and we'll also go ahead and use our sweet onion. If you can't find a Maui onion, just use a sweet onion. It'll give it that same sensation, okay? And I like to think knife cuts matter when you're actually going to serve something raw and people can see it. All right. Go ahead and get these, cut these through again. And then in addition to our Romas, which you could use any other kind of tomato, but Romas are a nice option. We're also going to use a cucumber. And I'm going to use, just because I like English cucumbers, you could use any cucumber that you can find. But I like the English cucumber just because it doesn't have quite as many seeds. I think it cuts up and it's just a little bit firmer, it holds a little bit better. So I'm going to use an English cucumber. Okay. And I think that'll probably be just about enough. All right. Get my little. If you don't have one of these, you're going to want one of these in your kitchen if you're doing a lot of chopping. This is a bench scraper. It saves the blade of your knife, and it just scoops everything right up. You'll hear a lot of different people, and I used to do it until I realized how bad it was, just taking the knife and dragging it across the top of the cutting board. Each time you do that, you're dulling your blade. So to keep your blade nice and sharp, go ahead and just invest in a little $4 or maybe $1 at the Dollar Tree little bench scraper there. Just to make this easier to work with, I'm going to go ahead and cut it so I can have a flat surface. Cut it into some pieces. I know know it's kind of hard to see from up here. Can you see okay? A little bit? Okay. Okay, and I want to try to mimic about the same size that I have for the tomato. So I think actually I can probably just do this in quarters. Same thing here. And then we're going to talk about how to cut an onion. How many of you know how to cut an onion that you get almost perfect sizes each time? Yeah, okay, good. Do you want to come up and demonstrate? Okay. You can help me. It's actually, there's a really simple technique. You just need to know which side. You need to look at the onion and determine which side the root was on, which side was growing down into the ground. That's the most difficult part. And when I'm teaching people to cut onions, it's almost comical how many times they grab the wrong end every time. So look at the part that had the little hairy roots on it. That's the part that grew in the ground. And that's going to be the part that you're going to want to leave intact and not cut through, okay? And what I mean here is this hairy little part right here, right? That's the part that was growing down into the ground. This was growing up. So the part that's in the hairy little part, the one that's got the little roots on it, you do not want to cut through this in just a moment. You're going to see, I'm going to cut it in two, and you're going to make sure that you cut it through the root down this way. Don't cut it this way, okay? All right. Once you've done that, then I'm going to nip this end off, but not the root end, remember, just so I can peel it easier. Get that off of there. This is a nice sweet onion that we have. Okay, now then, again, find the root end. Don't cut through this. Everybody say, don't cut through the root. Okay, yay, all right, we're learning. Okay, good. So you're going to take your knife first and you're going to hold it horizontal and go this way with it. But I'm not going to cut through the root. See? Don't cut through the root. So stop before you get to the root. Then do the same, and we're not going to cut through the root. We're not going to cut our fingers because it's back by the root, right? Okay. Then we're going to take and we're going to turn it and go the opposite direction with it. But I'm not cutting through the root. The root holds all those pieces together. So if I don't cut through the root, I can now turn it, come back, and cut this way. The root's doing all the work holding everything in place. Isn't that neat and so simple? Right. That's all you want to do. If by chance you get a little bit of root in there, I just cut it out. Okay. So now we have all these pieces. They're all nearly the same size, right? I'm going to put that in there with it too. Okay. I can continue that process. If I want to use the end piece up, I can just come back here and cut that little bit off so I'm not wasting anything. And I think I'm just going to use half of an onion. I don't want to use more than that today, I don't think. There are quantities written on your recipe there. I'm modifying this just for our size of our group anyway. So if you're making it for home, just look at the quantities there. That'll help you out, okay? All right, now that we have all this together, I think I'm going to use my bigger bowl. There we go. And as we said, we're going to loamy, so we're going to massage this, right? We're going to turn it a little bit with our hands first. All right. Add in our onion. Take a little bit of salt. The salt will start to break things down a little bit. And as I massage, there we go, pull all that in together. Is that my thing making noise? Is that bothering anybody? Okay, just realized it was rubbing there. Okay, and then add a little bit of pepper. Okay. Now the other thing I have here is I've got some lime. Okay. I will go ahead and cut my lime. I have my little lime juicer here. I think this one's supposed to be a lemon one, but it won't know. I'm going to do the same. Super, super simple. Super, super flavorful. We're going to loamy this again. We're going to give it a little turn. Then I'm going to come back, and we're going to add in our salmon. Okay. So far, can you see what we've got going on here? Yeah? This is a beautiful salad for summer, especially when things are hot outside. You don't want to add heat into your kitchen. Now, once you add in the salmon, just remember, this salmon is not the salt cured that's going to hold together well. This is going to get flaky. So I would just be real gentle. So this is a gentle lomi. Gently massage this in here. But you do want to add it in. You definitely want to toss it together to let all those flavors start to meld together.
Is that one package?
This was 2 packages, actually. Yep. Yeah. This is sea salt, and it's actually an Alaskan sea salt. Just thought it was kind of a nice little touch. But any sea salt that you have, or even a kosher salt's fine. I like using them because I can see them, as opposed to like a table salt, which is sometimes difficult to see how much you've got. This actually tends to be a little bit more even. There we go. And so before we serve this, we're going to garnish it and such, but I'm going to just set this off to the side, let it kind of do its thing over here, and we'll come back to that, okay? All right. Everybody with me so far? Okay, good. Never lost anyone. That's a good thing. All right. So this is going to be our lomi salmon. I'll wipe this down just a minute so I can switch gears here. All right. Anybody have any questions on the salmon or on the lomi dish so far?
Would you normally let that sit like overnight in the refrigerator?
Nope. No, I wouldn't go that long. Just maybe an hour or so and keep it nice and cold. Yeah. If you're using, it depends on what kind of the fish you're using, the salt cured or the other. It will start to break down a little bit because of the salt, because of the acid in the fruits or the vegetables that you have in there. You don't want that to happen too much to the salmon. I don't anyway. So I think just to kind of keep things nice and crisp and intact, I would just do it for maybe about an hour or so. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so this is a santaku knife, okay? It's got the tip that goes down. It's just a traditional chef's knife. I like this one to travel with because it's small. It's also not overly expensive, so I don't have to worry if something happens today to it. But I just like a nice knife. I'm not somebody who thinks that the better the knife you have, the better you're going to cook, because it doesn't work that way, you know? So you really need to learn the foundations of cooking first. Get yourself a good knife that's nice and sharp and not going to hurt yourself. You're not going to cut yourself. You don't want to be, putting too much pressure. It should slide through easily. And then just good maintenance on a knife. Once you have yourself a good knife, and this is just from GFS, I think this one might be $30. This is not a fantastic long-term knife, but it's a good short-term knife. It's more of a disposable knife. I will be able to sharpen this several times, but eventually it won't hold an edge anymore. And when you're sharpening, there's different, I'm glad you brought this up, there's different ideas about sharpening. When you sharpen a knife, you're actually removing pieces of metal to sharpen that edge, right? So the more you do that, you're diminishing the life of the knife. We also have a steel, which is the long piece of metal that you take the knife and you rake it against. All that's not actually removing any metal, and it's really not sharpening the knife. All it's doing is truing that edge. It makes it true and makes it appear and perceive to be sharper because all those little pieces are all going the same direction. If they start to get a little bent when they're real thin, they don't slide through as well. So all the steel does is just make everything stand back up at attention. Does that make sense? So just make sure you have a good sharp knife. If you can invest in a steel, I think a steel is a great thing to have. And if you're not in the position where you want to buy, some knives are $500-$600 even. If you're not in a position to do that, I wouldn't recommend it. I don't own one like that. That's just too much responsibility. As much as I'm traveling around and such, I had a nice knife that my kids got me after I graduated from culinary school, and it was a Japanese knife, and it was hammered, and it was beautiful, and I took it with me on a demo, and it got caught in the hydraulics of the car, like the seat, and when I went to move the seat back, so I sent it back, and they did replace it, but after that, I was like, I'm not going to travel with any knives anymore that are worth anything, so I don't anymore, but it's just a good knife, yeah, and I feel like a chef's knife. Any chef's knife is going to be, about this size, different lengths and blades, but it's just a knife that you can do a lot of chopping, a lot of slicing with, and it's kind of my best friend in the kitchen. Yeah.
Is there a purpose for those little divots? I've always wondered.
Right here?
Yeah.
To release, when you're sliding through something, it sucks to the side. So as you pull it off, it kind of creates a little bit of a vacuum, or not a vacuum, a little bit of air pocket there so that it can come off. So think about a potato. When you slide it in, it sticks to it really bad. With these little I guess, little divots in there. It does kind of create a little bit of an ease and kind of helps it release a little bit. Does that make sense? Yeah, so anyway, but that's my best friend anyway, is my chef knife. Okay, so we're gonna switch gears then to our huli chicken. All right. All right, so we had lomi salmon, and now we got huli chicken. Gotta love the Hawaiian language. Huli means, anybody know what huli means? Means to turn. So you think about this dish is best done outside. I'm gonna admit that right now. I already told John if we get a smoke buildup, he's gonna open up that door and we're gonna air it out, okay? Because this dish is definitely done and best when it's outside for several different reasons. Yes, you can grill inside. Grilling inside is fantastic. We have nice grill pans these days that you can do those things with. But this particular marinade, if you look at these key ingredients that are in here, we have chicken thighs have a lot of fat in them, right? We've got pineapple, a lot of sugar. Potatoes, not such an issue. Red onions, not such an issue. Ginger, garlic, soy. Once we get these things start to break down, the sugars in that pineapple are going to stick to everything, which we want it to. We want it to create that sticky caramelization that you get on the outside of the chicken. We want that. That's ideal. It's delicious, right? That's what we're going for. But it also is a real nasty little thing to clean out of a pan. And as it builds up in that pan, what happens? It starts to smoke. Yeah, so if that should happen today, don't worry. We're just going to prop that door open. I'm not gonna worry. We're not actually catching anything fire, but we do need to be aware that sometimes those things will happen inside. The other thing is we're also using the oil, which is a sesame seed oil. If you know anything about sesame seed oil, it has a really low smoke point. So again, it's going to create smoke just because, but we want that sesame oil flavor. That sesame seed flavor is just as iconic with huli. It's what we want to use for the marinade, so I wouldn't switch that out or you're going to lose some of your huli. You might just have a one hu instead of a huli. You want to make sure that you keep that sesame seed. But just remember, when you're cooking it inside, you will get extra smoke because of that. A couple different things that we can do to eliminate some of that smoke is having a hot pan when we start. Something on my pan. Having a nice hot pan to start with. The other thing is to make sure that your food is not too cold because you'll have this thing where they stick together and it'll burn. The other thing that we want to make sure, again, is our oil. You know, taking care to not have too much oil in the pan. And what we really recommend you do is brush the oil on your proteins and things that you're cooking as opposed to putting the oil in the pan, especially in a grill pan. These little divots are fantastic for collecting oil. And oil, after it breaks down, just burns. That's all it does. And then it also will collect in those divots and you'll have this nasty stuff that's really hard to get out. So not only does it burn, but it makes a real mess of things. Okay, so we've got, for huli chicken, let me get back to that. We're gonna be using chicken thighs, pineapple, soy, ginger, brown sugar. Again, brown sugar is gonna stick and burn, right? We also have our sesame seed oil, and we're gonna make a marinade out of that. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do. So to make your marinade is super, super easy. I'll use this right here. All we're gonna do is add all our ingredients in. So I've got my brown sugar. We'll start with my pineapple juice. Yes, you can use fresh pineapple juice. Now, does it say in my recipe how long to marinate this? Okay. Why doesn't it say overnight? Yeah, so pineapple juice has the same enzyme in it as our bellies. It breaks down proteins. And let me tell you a little story about that. So I'm out of culinary school. I'm getting my first gig. I'm going to go do this demo, or not a demo, but an event. And they wanted a pineapple stuffed chicken. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds fantastic. So night before, I start stuffing pineapples, or stuffing chicken breasts with pineapple. I cut a slit, stuff it inside, tie it off. I think we rolled it in, I don't remember, panko, and then I was going to put some coconut on top of it or something. It would have been fantastic, except that I let it marinate too long. And the next morning, when I went to start cooking and I cut into one, it had broken down the inside of the chicken, and it was running out. It was disgusting. So thank goodness I had plenty of time to start over and do something else. But it's a little lesson learned, so you don't want to marinate too long. So I tell you that story just so that you don't make the same mistakes. This is not something that you want, like many marinades, when you can say leave it in overnight. Do not do that, okay? Go for a shorter duration of time. We've got all these great flavors. There's ginger in the garlic that I just put in there, and I used a paste just because it's a marinade. I've got my sesame oil that's going to go in next.
Is that smoked sesame oil or regular? I noticed the grocery store, we bought some the other day and it had.
Like a toasted one?
Yeah.
Yeah, toasted. So this is actually just a simple smoked, or simple sesame without toasted. But I do have a toasted one here too, and the profiles are different. Yeah, so I kind of, yeah, I would stick with probably the one that's more, could be more generic for different uses and just buy one that's not toasted. They're great though, I mean better than cooking with, because this isn't a great oil to cook with. This is not what I'm going to be putting in the pan. These are good finishing oils and good marinating oils. But we don't tend to cook in sesame seed oil because of that low smoke point again. But you can drizzle something at the end with sesame oil and you get that fantastic flavor and a little bit of moisture, which is wonderful. And we like that. Okay, so I've got my marinade here. Okay, what I would suggest then is you pour some of that marinade off, which is what I have here. I made this at home when I was cooking. And then I took this actually and I just cooked it down even a little bit to get rid of some of the moisture to make it just a little bit thicker. And I'll tell you why here in just a moment. So we've got our marinade. You have your chicken. And we're not going to marinate the potatoes and the onions or anything else, just the chicken itself. Again, 2 to 4 hours right in here. And I've got my chicken thighs cut up. All right. Move this off to the side for a moment. Now, when we talked about browning chicken and we talked about that caramelization, often we think about browning and caramelization being the same thing. So caramelization happens with sugar. Browning happens with proteins, okay? We also, what we need to have something brown is it has to get to a certain temperature. So think with me for a moment. We're going to talk this through. You've got a steak, okay, and you want to brown that steak. You have to get it to a certain temperature to get that exterior to turn that color, right? And when it turns that color, some things happen. Not just the color changes, but the aroma changes, the flavors change. Something is happening, almost mysterious, as you're browning protein. It will not happen, though, until you get closer to 300 degrees. So think about if you were to boil a steak, what color would it turn? Gray. Because it can only get to 212. It's never going to reach the state of being able to, it's called a Maillard reaction, to never get to that point where those proteins can actually start browning and all those wonderful things we're looking for can take place. So now, think about that. I want to brown this chicken, but it's sitting in a bunch of liquid. Liquid, by definition, has a lot of water in it. Water, we just said, is going to basically impede our ability to brown anything, so we need to get that water off there. Think about, too, if you're outside, and when you're grilling, if you want to marinate, or not, excuse me, but marinate, you want to baste your chicken, go for it. You're outside. That moisture is going to drip down through the grill, and it's also going to release its evaporation. In here, it's going to pool in my pan, and it's going to start boiling. So you have to think about that. If you're doing this indoors, I would suggest you take it, and I've got this little tiny colander right here. I'm going to go ahead and pull all that out and let it set. I'm even going to take it and I'm going to dry it off with a paper towel. I've got extra that we just talked about, that I made up extra, that I can use to add, that would have been bad, add back in at the end of the cooking process, right before I serve it. But again, I'm doing this because we're doing this indoors. If I was doing it outdoors, this would be a step I wouldn't need to do. But if you're going to do this indoors, I would definitely suggest it, okay? So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to lay out a paper towel, I'm going to take my chicken, and I'm just going to lay it out here and let it drain out a little bit. I need to get rid of the moisture so I can get to the browning. If it takes too long for me to get rid of moisture, I'm going to overcook my chicken. Think about that. Like if you had a steak, and your steak has a lot of something on it, or even just water from the steak itself, the beef, or maybe a marinade, or maybe it was a frozen product, any of that moisture is going to cause issues for us. So we want to get rid of it. Okay? All right. Set there for a moment then, okay? Now, because it marinated, and I put it in this morning, it's been marinating, it's already kind of infused some of that flavor into the meat, so I don't need to worry about the fact that I'm taking it off of the meat. It was going to cook off the meat anyway, but I've got it inside the meat now, which is really where I want it to be. Okay. All right. Now, we've got onion. I'm going to add in potatoes to this particular dish just because I want to add in a touch of Alaska. And I also don't need a side dish that way. Everything is going to be on a skewer. Okay, I'm going to move these things down a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to skewer all this together. And in doing so, it'll make it kind of both states on one skewer. So 2 different cuisines, or 2 different regions, all on one skewer. We're going to blend the 2 together, all right? Let's see if I can find a pan to put this on. That's what I was starting to do. Put my chicken on there. You want to watch, obviously, with raw chicken. We want to make sure we're following proper sanitation, remembering that, chicken obviously has potential for different pathogens, so we're going to keep this off here by itself. Okay. Cover, clean gloves, okay? All right, so we'll just let that sit there by itself for a moment. All right, so I've got potatoes. The potatoes, because potatoes are going to cook a lot longer, take a lot longer than, say, our pineapple or onions, I went ahead and parboiled those. So those are basically cooked off. They might be slightly undercooked, so when they go back on the grill, they'll be in good shape. We're going to use that same technique that we used before. So we're going to cut through this way first, lengthways. Okay. Then again, we're going to nip this end off, but not the root end, right? There you go. I'm going to peel it. And you'll see how much bigger the rings are on a red onion. Can you see that already? Get this off there. And then I'll cut it into bigger pieces that we can put on these skewers. And then we're going to get these cooking. And again, I don't want to cut through or break my roots. I'm going to keep all that intact. Okay. And again, if you remember, first we're going to go horizontal. And I'm going to pull my knife off the table so I can get a nice straight cut. And I'm going to do a little bit bigger pieces this time because it's going to go on the skewer, and I'm not going through the root, right? To the root, but not through it. And I'm just going to do a couple cuts this way. And we want some big pieces. So there we go. Okay.
Your leftover stuff here, I noticed you're carefully putting.
So normally I would make a stock or something else from it. So down in Florida, I've been working with this nature center. I'm living down there part of the year now. And so I'm so aware now of trying to use every bit of everything and trying to really reduce waste and different things. So I will try to find a use for those before I leave today. But if I allow that to get near my chicken or something else, then I contaminate all of it. So I'll decide what to do with it later. I'm just keeping it safe for now. I may use it, I may not, but at least it's in a place where I know if I want to come back to it, I can. Often I'll use the onions for sure in some kind of a stock and those types of things. Okay, so here's our onion. Okay, how many of you are comfortable cutting pineapples? Yeah? Anybody? Yeah, a couple of you. So you want a nice sharp and long bladed knife again, okay? You need a long blade, a blade that's obviously going to be bigger than your pineapple. Now, we're going to get a flavor transfer, correct? I've got onion on this blade, and now I'm going to cut pineapple. If I would have thought about it, I should have done my pineapple first, done my onion second, but I didn't, so that's okay, because they're all going to go on the same skewer anyway. So we're going to get that flavor transfer anyway. But if you weren't, just kind of be mindful of that. It's nothing worse than getting some fruit, and it tastes like onion, right? Cool. Yeah, so just be mindful. Normally, I do my fruit first and then my onions. Okay, so to cut a pineapple, depends on what you want to do with it, obviously, lots of different ideas. I'm going to keep this top because I'm going to use the top as a garnish. So I'm just going to slice the top off first. Okay? Let's see how he lays. And I could come back and change the angle of this. I can do all sorts of different kinds of things to this. And we might. We might get fancy depending on how much time we have. Okay. Then we can come back and cut the bottom off, and we want to make sure that it's straight. Because I just want to make sure that it's set straight. Now, depending on what I wanted to do, I could just take my knife and carefully go like this on the outside, all the way around, and take off this outer part. I can also take it and cut it, quarter it this direction. I get those nice little shapes. I could do it in 4s or 6s, something simple. I can also take and cut it, some people cut it into a square, okay, which makes it very easy then to come back and remove the core if you're someone who doesn't like the core. Okay. For what we're doing today, I'm not too concerned about any of that, quite honestly. So I'm just going to show you how I take the outside off. Get it started here. There we go. All the way down. You can always come back if you've got too many eyes left. There we go. And I am going to leave one little section because I would like a garnish for my drink over there. If you notice, I haven't had any yet. I want it to look just as pretty as it tastes. So I'm going to leave a little piece of this yet that I can get with some skin on it so I can use it as a garnish on my drink. Okay, now I'm being very careful the first time around here not to take too much off. You can see I'm just kind of just barely nicking it. Okay, I'll do one more. Okay, now I think it gets easier the second time. Now I can get underneath those eyes and pull out as much of it as I want. And you see how we're just using that knife just to go around the natural shape of the pineapple. Trying not to lose any more fruit than I need to. And if you want to buy one, you can do that too. Bassett sells them already done. You don't have to take the time to do it. But I can tell you it's much cheaper, much fresher, and it's really not that hard. There we go, keep going around. Okay. Now I am going to go ahead and just cut. As I said, I want to keep a little piece with some skin on it. So I'm going to keep this piece here. Okay, I'm going to use my bench scraper here to come and get all of this so I don't have to worry. Keep my cutting board clean. There we go. Okay, so I've got a few little on there. I'm going to probably clean it up a little bit more yet. This part I left because I really wanted a piece that I could come back and cut a little wedge out of. Like maybe like that. And I can have some little wedges that we can have on there for garnish on our plate. And I haven't lost all of it. So you can get multiple uses out of the pineapple. You don't have to cut them all the same way if you want. And this little guy, I'm just going to come back and I'm going to cut a little slit, see if we like this size. And we can just let him hang right on there. Now I'm ready to drink it, see? All right, I'm going to leave these here for garnish. I've got a little stuff brewing over here we're going to use. All right, this, I'll set that there. Okay. Now then, we're going to go ahead. I'll take a little bit more of this off and be a little more aggressive now. Just to get those big eyes off. Then I can cut this up into pieces that I can then use on my skewers. So on my skewer, I'm going to have my onion, my chicken, my potato, and some pineapple. You want everything about the same size because we want everything to cook at the same rate, correct? And very easily, as I cut this, I can just cut that core out if I don't want to use the core. If you want to use the core, go for it. But I want them all similar sizes. They don't have to be exact. Okay, there we go. We've got plenty of pineapple now. Get rid of that core. All right, now we are ready to start making up our skewers. Okay. Let's see. Here they are. Say, where are my skewers? There we go. There we go. Okay. So when you're skewering, some people will like to soak these ahead of time. You can, especially if you're going to be an open flame outside, you might want to smoke these in a little bit of water. But we said water's not really what we're looking for, right? Anything that's going to be wet is going to impede our ability to really get a good sear. So I'm going to go ahead and just go without it. And we're using an indoor pan today, so it's not a problem anyway. You want to make sure that as you skewer, you leave a little bit of room. You want to make sure that all sides are going to be able to cook. And you want a little bit of circulation through there. Get a nice big piece of onion. Now, don't worry. I made a bunch of these up ahead of time, so we don't have to do them all right now. You can do any pattern you want. You don't even have to follow a pattern. The great thing to do with little people, if you've got some little people in your life that like to cook, this is a good thing that they can do with you. And actually, I was cooking with the kids yesterday up at the train station, and I had a little 5-year-old there, which found her way into the program kind of by accident, but it was kind of a sweet little accident. And I said, you want to skewer the fruit? We're going to make some little grape and berry skewers. And she said, I don't know how to skewer. And I just was like the sweetest thing ever. It's like, oh, we probably need to start right there, don't we? Okay, this is a skewer. Yeah, we slide things on it. Yeah, so it was kind of funny. So I'm assuming you all know how to skewer, all right? If we need to start there, we can.
What did you say about the potatoes? They're already cooked?
Yeah, I parboiled them, and they're probably 95% done right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and basically warm them back through. Just be mindful that you've got raw chicken. And so as I'm cooking here and working here, I want to make sure that I know where the raw chicken is on my workstation, everywhere. Don't want any cross-contamination. Okay. I'll do one more. Now the pieces you can't see too much from where you are, but I tried to make sure that we're using chicken thighs, and I've gone through and tried to cut them. I cut a lot of the fat out because, again, if I was outside, no big deal. The fat can burn. It can go all over the place. I didn't want that fat burning in here, so I tried to cut as much of the fat off as possible. That being said, fat is flavor, so you kind of hate to do that if you don't have to. Get a little onion piece here. But all the pieces are similar sizes because we want them to cook at the same rate. If I was going to make these up ahead of time, again, because I told you my horror story about pineapple and chicken, I would not even set these two together next to each other on the skewer. I would put a piece of onion or potato or something between them, because that's how powerful that enzyme is that's in that particular pineapple. Anybody remember what it's called? It's with a B, right? Like bromic acid or something like that. I forget what it is, but it's an enzyme, and it's powerful. Okay. All right, so go ahead and turn this on. Okay, we got a flame. We're in good shape. Okay, so again, huli means to turn. So as you're cooking this traditionally outside over an open fire, you would have your chicken, which normally it's just chicken thighs. It doesn't necessarily need to be small pieces. I'm doing that because it would take us 20 minutes to cook chicken thighs. This is going to take me just a few. So I'm going to get my pan nice and warm first. But I'd be cooking this over an open flame, and then I'd be basting it as I cook. I'm not going to do a lot of basting today because, again, I want to cut down on the amount of smoke that we're going to have in here. We also talked about browning and using oil on our proteins as opposed to putting it in our pan. So I'm just going to brush this right on top. And this is just a canola oil, simple canola oil. All right, once I know that this is warm, I'm going to give it just a minute yet. We're going to go ahead and put it on in the pan. And we're going to have to turn it, right? We want to turn. That's what this whole huli chicken stuff is here. So we're going to let it turn and make sure that we get caramelization and that browning on all sides. We need that Maillard reaction. Remember, that's the word there. Okay. Get rid of that now. Does anybody remember what the internal temperature is that's safe for eating chicken is? 160. You guys are a good group. 165, yes. So I would invest in a little thermometer. I use one all the time. I don't leave it to guesswork. We have a little thermometer here, and we're going to get to 165. Now these pieces, I'm going to know they're done because they're going to be nice and brown and almost a little crunchy on the outside, and they're so thin they're going to cook up really quick. But if I was doing chicken thighs on the grill whole thigh, I would make sure that I had my thermometer out, okay? Have a little drink there. Okay, let's see how we're doing. Okay, I think we're getting warm there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put the side down. Ooh, we got a sizzle. That's a good sign. We're in business. There we go. There we go. If it starts to get a little smoky, we'll open it up. Otherwise, we'll let it go for now. But if it starts to bother anybody, please. Are you manning the door, John? You manning the door? All right. I told him ahead of time that I was a little concerned. I didn't want to fill up everyone with smoke today. Yes, you could do this as a stir fry also, but there's 14 different cooking methods, in case you wanted to know. 7 of them are for just oil and dry heat, no moisture added into it. Stir frying, when you're stir frying, you are continually stirring. and you're trying to prohibit any browning from happening. So think about when you get that beautiful mugogai pan, everything is just those brilliant colors. You've got that really bright orange and bright pea pods and all these colors, but there's no browning on any of it, is it? It didn't sit there long enough in the pan that it could brown. In order to brown, it's got to sit. It's got to make contact. It has to sear. It's got to allow that Maillard reaction to happen. That being said, we're going to huli, so we're going to turn this periodically so that we can continually get that nice color that we're looking for. So I've got my handy dandy tongs. I'm going to use these actually. I actually have this. I thought I would pass it around. This is the package that our candied salmon came in. People want to take a look at it and see. All right, I'm going to start working on plating these things up while that's cooking also. Come back to our loamy salmon. I'm going to use this as a little bit of a end marinade. I did go ahead and put a little bit of salt on ahead of time. And I'll probably do just a little bit more. You want to salt right when you start cooking, not ahead of time because salt dehydrates, right? So you don't want to let everything sit in salt because otherwise you're just dehydrating your protein. Put that back here. Okay. Seeing a little smoke. Now the other thing is, if it doesn't release, don't force it. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. Yeah, we might as well open the door. There we go. Ready to turn that here in a minute. Now again, we have that brown sugar in there, we've got the pineapple juice in there, we've got sesame seed oil in there. These things all traditionally are going to smoke, so we just kind of need to be ready for it. And again, it's a really great application for outdoors. It tastes pretty good indoors though too. So. If it's not releasing on its own, it's not ready to be turned. So don't force that chicken off or any of those proteins. As that Maillard reaction happens, it automatically those cells all kind of come together, it'll automatically release. So if you're pulling it and it's not coming, stop pulling it, okay? Just let it do the work. Let it get nice and hot, and then it's all stuck on there right now, so it's not ready to go. So I'm going to give it just a minute. All right. Yes. Yep. I still kind of put a little bit of oil on the grill itself. Sometimes, depending if your grill's really seasoned, you wouldn't need to do that. But make sure you've got oil either on the protein or the grill. Also, depending on what you have on there, if you're using like a sticky, sweet barbecue sauce, it's not the chicken that's sticking, then it's the barbecue sauce that's sticking. So you have to be aware of that too. But the protein itself will release on its own. If you have a lot of sugars in something, though, of course, candied bacon, something like that, you get on the grill, it's going to stick automatically, but not because of the protein. Any other questions like that? That's a good one. Anybody? Okay. While that's going on, I'm going to grab my gloves again. Part of it's getting the right temperature. Part of it is knowing what you're working with and just knowing what's going to happen and being ready for it. Can you smell it yet? Yeah? And again, remember as these things are happening and that browning is happening, not just the color's changing, but the aroma is changing. Yeah. And it's really interesting if you think about it from that perspective. Okay. I also have just a little bit of green onion. I'm going to take our loamy salad. I'm going to massage it a little bit more, maybe one more time, just kind of give it a little bit more of a turn. And I am going to plate this directly on a platter.
Is that a wood board?
It is.
What are your thoughts on wooden cutting boards versus plastic?
Oh my gosh, it's such a good question. So in this day and age, we understand microplastics more than we ever have before, right? And we understand that they're leaching into our foods, they're leaching into our bodies. We don't know really what the end game of all of it is. It's a little scary. So we're really trying to maybe eliminate some of the plastics. One of those places that you can try is in your kitchen. But I'll tell you it's hard. I think that a home kitchen much, much easier than a commercial kitchen, that's for sure. When it comes to cutting boards themselves, as you are cutting across that cutting board, you are releasing pieces of plastic right into everything, little micro pieces, but it is happening. So if you can get away from it, it's great. The problem, and the reason why plastic is so popular, is because it's easy on blades, on your knife itself. It's also can be sanitized super, super easy. If you're using a wooden cutting board, they're really hard to sanitize. And as they get cracks and such in there, different particles can get trapped in there, pathogens begin to grow, and then you have yourself kind of a very unsafe environment for cutting food. So in your home, I would suggest whatever you're comfortable with, first and foremost. Stay away from glass, stay away from stainless steel. Have you guys seen those stainless steel cutting boards they're now selling on, I don't even know which side it is, but that's the most asinine thing I think I've seen yet. That is gonna just destroy your blades. If you're gonna cut on it, stay away from it. If you're just gonna prep on it, stainless steel is fantastic. But for cutting, never a good idea. Wood is nice for things that, like fruits and vegetables and that kind of thing. But again, it doesn't matter. Once those particles get trapped in that wood, it can be an issue. So you really have to maintain them. If you start to see scratches, dents, pulling apart, cracks, that kind of stuff, throw it out. Or just use it as a serving dish. Do you have a question?
Well, just in regard to that.
Yeah. Yeah, lemon juice isn't going to doesn't sanitize. It'll get rid of the odor, but it's not going to kill anything. Yeah, it's going to clean. It cleans fantastic, but it doesn't sanitize, and those are two different things. So in a commercial kitchen, you're not allowed to have wood cutting boards at all. Health department says, because they're just difficult to keep clean, and they're difficult to ensure that no one's going to get sick, which is what obviously we're looking for. All right, we're going to give it a turn. So in your home kitchen, if you want to go for wood, great. As soon as you start to see any of those things happen, though, I would either get rid of it or find a new use for it, maybe just display with it. Plastic is great because, again, you can sanitize it. If you see any odor, smell any odor, that's never a good thing. I'm going to get rid of that immediately. Yeah. So plastic is still what we're using in commercial kitchens because it's safest. So it is kind of a trade-off. There are hard wood bamboo boards, but those will dull your blade, and the worst cut I've ever had was using a bamboo board because your knife can't get in there and actually grip into that board. It's almost like cutting on glass, and that blade's going to flip off, and you're going to get hurt. So bamboo boards, yes, they're great for holding up, but they're not very safe, and they're not used in commercial kitchens for that reason. So I don't have a good answer. I'm looking for one. I'm searching for good answers when it comes to cutting boards, but we're having lots of discussions about cutting boards these days. Yeah. Okay, I have a few that I made up ahead of time, and I'm going to go ahead and just put those on the grill as well. These are just the chicken, and these just need to warm through because those are already cooked. I'm going to give it a chance so everybody gets a little bit something to sample today. Can you see the beautiful color, though, that we're getting? Yeah, look at that. And we don't have too much smoke. We're good. All right. We turned it down. All right. Well, because I'm not done yet, though, either, so maybe I shouldn't say anything. We'll wait and see how it goes here in a few minutes. Here we go. Okay, so we're working on the loamy salmon here, plating it anyway. I'm just going to, again, be mindful of my gloves. I'm going to trade that one off. I'm going to add just a little bit of sesame seeds on top, some fresh dill. We've already got our lime in there, so I'm going to use some lime as a garnish. And that's going to be our loamy salmon, our Atlantic or smoked loamy salmon. I've got some green onion here. And I'll grab my knife. Here we go. Okay. I'm going to cut these a little bit on a bias, meaning just at a 45-degree angle, just to make them a little fancier, but you don't have to do that. There we go. Okay. This guy. I'll just go like this. These on there, just kind of give it some color. Squeeze him on here a little bit more. I think that looks kind of pretty. already, actually. There we go. Maybe a little bit more onion. Okay. We'll hit it with a little bit more salt. Now remember, we didn't salt this ahead of time, did we? We didn't add any salt. But lime is, your tongue kind of perceives it as salt because of that acid. And also smoked salmon, the same, that smokiness will kind of give you that perceived amount of salt too. So you don't have to oversalt this particular dish. We can go very low. Sorry about the floor there, John. We can go really easy on the salt and still get lots of flavor. And we also have some dill here. I'm going to add some dill in as well. We could have loamied that. We could have actually massaged that into the dish if we wanted. Again, the dill is not iconic with this particular dish, but it sure does taste good. We kind of put our own little twist on it today anyway with the smoked salmon. Let's add some little dill in here, some little fronds to kind of give it some color. Okay. That's going to be our lomi, and when we're finished here, I'm just going to get a chance to taste that if you like. Okay. Oh, this is looking good. So we're going to go ahead and hoolie this. I'm going to turn it, hoolie. There we go. Obviously, when you're grilling, think about this. We told you about those 14 different cooking methods. When you're grilling, your heat's coming from where? The bottom, right? If I'm broiling, it's coming from... If I'm baking, it's all around, right? I could do this all day. But when we're grilling, we're only getting heat from the bottom source. So the only place that Maillard reaction is going to happen is on the bottom where it's making contact in that pan. Now, what you can do, though, if you need to speed this along, you can start it in there, get a little bit of browning that's taking place, and then pop it in the oven where you get that heat coming from all sides. It'll continue browning on all sides that way. If you're in your condo, your cottage here, someplace where you are getting a lot of smoke, I would go ahead and brown it off, get that color first, and then I pop it in my oven. Then I don't have to worry about any smoking. Little tip, okay? And give this another little turn, hoolie. I have fingers that are made of steel at this point. You could use your tongs. Probably a safer bet for most people. Okay. Here in a moment. Just come back to that. Okay, now we have a clean. The white one is what I use for the oil, not touch the raw chicken. So now I have one. The other thing, before I say that anyway, a lot of times in a huli recipe, we make a comment about recipes online. Anybody can put anything out online these days, right? Anybody can write a recipe and stick it up on the web. You go and you have no idea what the background is of this person that's now posting this recipe. It's good and bad. So there's a lot of trusted websites out there for recipes, maybe some that aren't as trusted. One thing I saw when I was researching huli recipes that are out there is that a lot of people tell you to use your marinade to baste your chicken or your marinade to drizzle at the end. What? That's horrible. Think about that. You've got that raw chicken juice was in your marinade. That's a horrible idea. So please don't do that. Pour a little bit of that marinade off ahead of time. Keep it off to the side. This is going to be your finishing sauce. Then you can go all day long with it. You can use it however you want. But discard the marinade. You should never use your marinade for anything. It should only be used to marinade, and then you throw it away, okay? Promise me. If you learn anything else today, don't use your marinade as a sauce ever. Doesn't matter what you're marinating or what it is. Never a good idea. I think we got the right temperature on this pan cooking. We're good. All right. I do have my trusty little thermometer here. As I told you, eyesight's probably about as easy today because these pieces are so small. But I can tell you right there's a little piece that is not cooked yet, so we're going to slide him on over. And again, it's got to make contact to get that browning. So we'll give that just a moment. So when we plate this, I'm going to go ahead. I have a little bit of purple cabbage just because I think the purple cabbage is pretty. It adds a little color. Purple's kind of a trendy color in the kitchen right now for plating. So we're going to use a little bit of purple cabbage. And then we're going to put our skewers over it. It also creates a little bit of height, which is kind of nice. We'll use that. Leave that for now. We're getting ready here. Kicked it up a little bit, so we're probably going to get just a little bit of smoke. That's okay. As far as any other ingredients, any other questions on anything that was in there, you can find hibiscus tea almost anywhere these days. Normally, all is going to be made with the red hibiscus flower. That's traditional, but you can find there's several different varieties that Hawaii produces. The red is the most popular, even though yellow's their state flower. But the red makes a fantastic tea, so you can find that anywhere these days. Any other questions while we're kind of waiting on these last little skewers? Oh, you got a question down there? Oh, she's, okay, the salmon's still making its way around there.
Tips on cooking rice, white rice?
Yeah, okay, so there are some basics on cooking any rice. White rice traditionally is going to be like a long grain rice, like basmati or jasmine, something like that. It has a lot of starch on the outside. So first and foremost, sorry, that would be my condo maintenance guy. First and foremost, you want to make sure that you rinse your rice, always. So when you put that rice under the water, you're going to see the rice run out. You could put it like in a colander, hold it underneath some water. You're going to see it rinse out. It's going to be almost white, like milky color as it rinses out because there's so much starch. If you don't get rid of that starch is going to make all your rice clump together. So first and foremost, if you want a pilaf style rice, which is individual pieces of grain, you've got to rinse the rice. Second tip is you're going to want to make sure that you pearl your rice. So you take a little bit of oil in your pan, heat it up, throw in those rinsed rice grains now, and toss it in that oil. If you coat every little grain in a little bit of oil, they don't stick together. Okay? So heat it up, then add in your stock. If you're using an absorption method, add the stock and then your lid and let it sit there. Normally 18 minutes is a pretty good cooking time. So you rinse it, pearl it, add in your some kind of a flavorful liquid, like I like a stock with my rice. Garlic, onion, whatever else you want to put in there. Cover it, wait about 18 minutes, come back and fluff it with a fork. That's kind of those are the tried and true tips I can give you.
The stock has been, you boil the stock first or in a separate pan.
Yeah, well, I do that with risotto. Not so much an issue when you're talking about a long grain rice. You don't have to do that. You can put like a cold stock right on in there. Yeah. Rice cookers are great. Yeah, they're pretty tried and true also. I always rinse it though first, and most of them tell you to rinse it because regardless of what you're doing, that starch is going to pull it together and make it clump together. Now that's great if you're trying to make like a rice cake, like if you're using a short grain rice and you want something sweet, we don't worry about it nearly as much. But when you're talking about pilaf, which is probably what you're referring to, and you want little pieces of rice that just kind of fall apart on your plate, you don't want those to stick together.
You said pearl it, you said you put the oil in the
Yeah, well, nope, you put your oil in your pan.
Okay.
So no liquid yet. You just got a little bit of oil in the pan, and then you put in your wet rice that you've just rinsed, and toss it in there with that oil. Then add in your liquid. That's called pearling. We do the same thing with risotto. It's a step that we always use, but you want to make sure you rinse it, make sure you pearl it, make sure that you cook it for the right amount of time, and make sure you fluff it. Yeah. Nope, like the little pearl, P-E-A-R-L. I think it's because when those grains of rice, as you pearl them, because you got a little bit of heat going too, so you've got some heat in there with the oil, those grains are going to become slightly translucent. You're going to be able to see through them a little bit. They get glossy and very shiny, kind of like a pearl would. So when you see that happening, then you know you're ready to go ahead and add in your stock.
Yeah, rinse, I've never heard of pearl.
Yeah, pearling, yeah, pearling the rice. All right. Ooh, I think we're in good shape. It's looking good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of this. Now, as I said, when I made this marinade, I kept that a little bit. And I also, because I want this to kind of get sticky and caramelized, I went ahead and reduced it down. So I went ahead and did some of the work ahead of time. I put it in a pan, allowed some of this evaporation to happen so that it would thicken up a little bit, so that as I came back and was going to use it later, I don't have to wait so much for that. Because remember, it's not going to caramelize until that liquid's gone. So just to speed it up a little bit, I went ahead and did a little bit of that work ahead of time. You could also even do this, if I had a microwave handy right now, I'd probably give this to Chef Mike and let it warm up a little bit, and I could use it as a nice warm glaze at the end. Now you can really smell it. Has anybody had huli huli chicken in Hawaii? Anywhere? No? Yeah? Yeah. Did you have whole chicken thighs? Do you remember? Yeah. Was it part of a luau, or was it a celebration, or just on a menu somewhere? Okay. 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 Probably. Yeah. I mean, it's a dish that's iconic with Hawaiian culture. It's used a lot in celebrations, luau's, Hawaiian festivities, weddings, those kinds of things. When you get that caramelized piece that looks like that, it's almost like candied on the outside, that's what we're looking at. That's what we're going for. And if you have whole chicken thighs, it's the same process, no different. I did this simply for the ease of our demo, and I also think actually it plates really well too. You've got those beautiful colors. So they're actually, yeah, they're not native also. These particular potatoes are more of a agricultural native to Alaska, and that's why I chose the potato to put on the skewer so I could bring Alaska into the dish today. But yeah, potatoes are not native to Hawaii at all. I'm assuming because of the different patterns of trade and different things. I mean, Hawaii sits right there in the Pacific Ocean. I'm assuming they were brought in at some point in time. But yeah, they're definitely not a native crop. Another thing when I was researching too and thinking about pineapple, pineapple is not native to Hawaii. Who would have thought? It's not native, but it's responsible today for more than 1/3 of all pineapples produced globally. So it was actually brought over, they believe, from probably Brazil. Not exactly sure how, but if you go to Hawaii now, I know when we went, we did one of the pineapple plantation tours. If anybody's done that with Dole, that was pretty awesome. Yeah. How are we doing on time? Okay. Okay. Go ahead and, again, if I was to plate this, with those beautiful red onions, that purple cabbage, they just plate really well together. Can add a little bit of that, again, something green. I'm just going to use a little bit of green onion, not a lot, but you get that pop of green with that pop of purple. Very pretty. And we can do a little this way. Do a little bit on top. Like so. We can do it around the plate if we wanted. There you go. Yeah, you can use right on the cabbage then. Okay. Any questions? Anything? Wow, good. Okay. Who's hungry? All right, good. Now, do you think I can leave these right up here, John? They can walk by? Is that? Okay. All right. Actually, I'm going to take a picture of this real quick so I can remember in case somebody asks me, what that dish that you made? Can you tell me about it so I don't forget what it was. And then I'm going to take these off the skewers so that we can actually... There we go. Okay. Now, for the sake of our demo, I'm just going to take these off so that people can come up and grab a little bite to eat. I've got some tongs up here. I've got some little plates. There we go. Oops, lost a potato. There we go. It's going to come off there. It's traditionally, you can use any cut of the meat that you like. It's traditional to use the chicken thigh, and chicken thigh tends to, because it's fattier, tends to grill a little bit better. It holds more moisture in. So I think that's why it's kind of preferred. However, yeah, you could use any part of the chicken that you have. Yep. If you like breast better, if you got some breast, you can cook them up whole, or you could put them on skewers, whatever you decide. One last piece here, if I can get that off. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna put a little extra sauce on there. I don't know, but it smells pretty darn good up here. All right, get some of this out of the way. Okay, as I said, I've got some little plates. There we go. Some plates. There are some little tongs. There we go. And then there are some little forks right here. All right, so come right on up. We'll just start on this end. You can make your way right on through. Take your fork. There you go. Get these out of the way. Yeah, don't be shy, Doug. Come right on up here.
I have one question.
Yes, yeah. He runs. He does a lot of running, actually. The question is, why is my husband not fat? He runs. There you go. Got the mess here. Try to clean it up at the same time. This way I get to see everybody too. See? Clean that up in a minute.
Do the zipper merge like you do in traffic, right? That's what you're supposed to do out west. That's the law. Here, nobody lets you in. Zip right in there, young lady.
I think I have her some
Sorry,
scissors.
it's all gone.